Hey guys, what's up? Inksmith back again, and today going over the review of one of the saddest mangas I have personally ever read, known as Star Dog Protector, also known as Hoshi no Dog Star Protector, also known as Stargazing Dog, also known as probably the most common name, Hoshi no Mamoru Inu. Okay? This is a sad one, and if you enjoy a good, sad manga that's going to make you really go through a tearjerker of a story, then just go read it. Don't waste your time with this video. Come back and listen to it if you want to after, but we're going to go through the story, make a brief synopsis of it. Yes, there's going to be spoilers from this point on, but if you enjoy a good, sad read, go read this first and then come back and talk to me. But this story starts out from the view of a young girl who brings home a puppy she finds in a basket. And this is the daughter of the main person you're going to be following through most of this story, the dad. When she brings home the small puppy, it's really excited to be in a new house. It's really excited to be adopted by a new family. And it's going so wild that it actually starts to jump around the house and eventually bites the dad in the face. And it doesn't do this because it's a bad dog or that it's too aggressive or crazy. It's just so excited it doesn't know what to do. And instead of getting angry, the first thing the dad does is say, "I'm going to keep you. Just be thankful for that. That's all I ask." He gets his face patched up. And then he starts to form a close bond with the dog because right away the daughter stops taking care of it just because mostly she's a little kid. And this happens quite a bit. I've seen it happen with my own kids where they bring home a pet and you end up taking care of it. He ends up spilling all his woes and kind of hardships to the dog every day that he takes the dog for a walk because pretty much this is the only family member that gives him extra attention and listens to his stories. And while he can't reciprocate any of the dialogue that the dad feeds him, he always answers the dog in his own dog mind, and you can read his thoughts throughout the manga, and they're always like, "Thank you, Dad. I'm so glad you're home, Dad. Thank you for taking me for a walk, Dad." It's really sweet. Now, as life progresses, the dad works more and more, and the daughter starts to grow up, and she becomes kind of a rebel. So as this starts to happen, this is where the story starts to take kind of a division from being your everyday normal Japanese family of the salaryman dad, the stay-at-home wife who is a housewife, and the girl who, I guess she's junior high school or high school, but once she finishes, she becomes sort of this like Yankee girl who's kind of rebellious and wild and starts a band. But what also starts to happen is this is kind of where the book splits off into a sort of downward spiral for the dad, where things start to fall apart for the whole family as a unit. The daughter acts out so much that eventually the mom asks the dad to talk to her, be more, strict with her and give her times to be home by and stuff. And the dad says, "Well, like she's both of our daughters, like I can talk to her about it, but you're a mom and you probably understand your daughter more than I do." Also, you got to remember this guy's like working 24/7. A salaryman in Japan doesn't really get a lot of free time, like almost none. They usually work 9 to 9, 6 days a week. It's, the 699 deal that you hear about in China. That goes on in Japan too. So probably after he gets home, his big thing to do is any little bit of free time he has is he takes the dog for a walk and spills his guts to this dog. Later, the wife asks if she can get a part-time job, and the husband doesn't even say, "No, I'm a traditional guy. I want you to stay home." He says, "That's totally up to you. If you want to work a part-time job, go ahead and do it." He doesn't discourage her and he doesn't encourage her. He says, "It's really your decision. That's not really my choice to make." But really, it really starts to go bad is where the dad starts to have all kinds of heart problems. And this is mostly just due to his old age. He's not super old. It looks like he's about anywhere between 50 to 60. Retirement age is 62 in Japan. So since he's still working, I'm guessing he's late 50s, which at this point in my life, I don't consider ultra old, seeing as I am 40. But he starts to get chronic heart problems, and one day he passes out at work. When he passes out at work, sadly, he's laid off then and just kind of discarded by the company. And there's no kind of compensation or plan for him when he suddenly quits. Well, I shouldn't say quit, he gets laid off. And every day that he goes for a walk with the dog, now he starts going to the unemployment office and he can't get employed because one of the big problems in Japan is at a certain age, it is very difficult for people to get a job. It's hard for them to move on to a new company, new subject, new idea, new learning skill. At least that's what a lot of Japanese corporations think. They think, oh, well, you did this for all these years. You probably can't start here and start doing this, or you're going to expect this high level of pay because you're this certain age, where I think most of the time, a lot of the old people here in Japan are hard workers who would work pretty much any job they were given. Sadly, this guy just can't get a job. He lives out in the countryside. There's not a lot of work for him. And even though every day he's going to the unemployment office, he can't get anything. Finally, one day, the wife comes home and she brings him divorce papers just out of the blue. No warning at all, just says, here's divorce papers. I want to get a divorce. And, he's really kind of taken aback. He's kind of really surprised and shocked that she'd want to do this. And he says, well, wait, you always ask my opinion about everything, like what I should do with our daughter, if you should get a job. And I always let you make your decision on that. But on this one, can I make a decision and say I'd rather us stay together? She says, no, your opinion doesn't matter anymore. And I can't put up with somebody who can't get a job and has chronic health problems that don't really give money to the family but take money away from the family. So she just divorces him, and that's final. From my point of view, this is really kind of the saddest part because sadly, this does happen a lot more ever since women could start to get 60% of a man's income after they get a divorce in Japan. The divorce rate in Japan kind of skyrocketed, and sadly, a lot of salarymen ended up divorced, and once the kid left for college and college was fully paid for, the wife would divorce him, get 60% of his income, he'd live alone in an apartment, and he would die alone. And it happens so much in Japan that there's people called all the time for a smell in an apartment, and it's another dead salaryman who died alone because his whole family abandoned him. Well, anyway, she divorces him, she leaves him, and she takes pretty much everything, the house, almost everything in the house. He's left with a car, and he finds out he has so few things because he's had so little time to buy anything for himself because he's always working in the past, that he can literally fit everything that he owns in the house into the car. And he gets the dog too because both the wife and the daughter no longer take care of the dog. He decides he's going to go on a road trip. He has a pretty positive attitude. There's no point in the manga where he gets angry or wants revenge or lashes out. He just says, you know what? I'm going to make the best of it. Let's load ourselves up into the car and we're going to go on a road trip. It's going to be an adventure. So this is kind of where we see him on the road for the first time, and kind of some of the stuff he talks to his dog about is sort of philosophical on his life. They literally don't have a place to go or a place to stay, so he just says, let's just drive south. On the way, they meet a small homeless child who's obviously just neglected by his mom, it's horrible. He has his own side story, which can actually be followed up in a different manga, but he's pretty much neglected by his mom, and to survive each day, he's been stealing stuff from a store. If you've ever seen the movie Daremo Shiranai, Nobody Knows, it's the same situation where he's been so neglected that the mom isn't even home enough to feed him or make him proper food or give him money to buy a snack even, and he's stealing from the store. And one time when he's doing that, this dad, who's now alone and in his car and driving south, catches him doing that. He just happens to be at the same combini where this little kid who's homeless and neglected is stealing something, and he says, hey, don't steal that. I'll pay for it. So he buys the kid the snack he wants and starts feeding him and says, you know what, I don't really have a destination, but you're still young enough. You probably have a place where somebody will take care of you. Where do you need to go? And he says, Hokkaido. And so right away, the guy's like, Hokkaido? How the heck am I supposed to get to Hokkaido? You can't drive from mainland Japan to Hokkaido. So he says, you know what? I'll get you at least to the point where the ferry can cross you over to Hokkaido. So that's what he starts to do. He starts heading north now. Sadly, it's only a couple nights in where While he's asleep in the car, the little kid steals his wallet and runs off. And he's stole just about every last penny that this guy owns. And he's now left with nothing but the stuff in his car and his dog. Shortly after, the dog gets a kidney stone and is squealing and whining in pain. And the dad freaks out because this is his last friend. This is the one person who has always listened to him and been by his side through these whole adventures and everything. So he says, I'm going to do anything it takes to get you healthy again. He drops by a vet. They get rid of the kidney stones. The dog's healthy again. But before he can pick the dog up, he needs to pay. So what does he do? He sells every last thing. He pawns every last thing inside of the car and gets the dog out. So now he's down to like zero money, no wallet, just a car, not even enough for gas to keep going. They make a couple more stops, but eventually they end up coasting into a park area where you can camp for as long as you want to. It's a public camping area. And he says, this is my great idea. I'm going to coast in here, and even though we have no more gas, we can camp out in my car. And to get food, we'll just dig through the trash and start eating people's food. So this guy's gone from a well-paid salaryman living with a full family, all the amenities of a nice apartment in a great area, to a homeless guy in his car eating out of the trash. Sadly, at this point, things take the turn for the utter worst, and he runs out of his heart medication. He eventually loses his eyesight because he can't take his medication anymore. And eventually he reaches a point where he can't even get out of the car because he's so weak, and the dog starts bringing him food back from the trash just so he can eat. But this is obviously not going to be enough. A dog doesn't know what a human needs to eat, so he gets so weak that he knows he's eventually going to die. And so what he says is, look, what I'll do is I'll leave the car door halfway open, and you can come in and out of here as you need so you still have a place to stay. And he dies. And each day, the dog still doesn't understand and keeps trying to bring him more food. And at this point, I mean, reading the manga, if tears aren't pouring down your face, you're a psychopath. No, I mean, it's super sad. It's heart-wrenching at this point because you're still reading the thoughts of the dog, and the thoughts of the dog are things like, hey, Dad, wake up. I brought you food. Hey, Dad, I found some good stuff in the trash. Why won't you wake up? Okay, I guess I'll wait another day in the car. Finally, one day when the dog is searching for food for the dad who's already died, he comes across another family camping at the park and gets so excited that he can ask them for help that he starts running towards them like really aggressively and barking because he wants to get their attention to bring them to the car to check on the dad, which he doesn't understand. The dad's not coming back. But because he approaches it in this way, the main dad of the family, of this new family camping in the park, gets really worried that it's a crazy, aggressive attack dog, and he hits it with a piece of wood, smacks it over the head, and blood starts running out of the dog's head, who whimpers and slowly crawls back to the same vehicle he's been spending the night in and dies. He says, Dad, I'm so sleepy and my head hurts so bad, I'm just going to take a nap. But he dies. He's been hit hard enough and beaten hard enough with a piece of wood that he lays down and dies next to the dad. And you watch as winter comes and the car is covered in snow, becomes completely abandoned, starts to rust and fall apart, and nothing's left but two bodies inside of a car until the police finally find it laying there and discover what's happened. Of course, there is a final epilogue where the dog meets the dad in heaven or the afterlife or whatever they imagine comes next. And he said, oh, Dad, I'm so happy to see you again. I waited so long. And he said, it's okay now. We can go enjoy the afterlife. But, I mean, the real life aspect of it is so bone-crushingly sad that you're left just absolutely feeling punished for reading this. Not because it's a bad story or anything like that. You just feel like you've been punished along with this poor Ochan who, no matter how hard he worked, everybody abandoned him. And that's kind of the point of the story. That's how you're supposed to feel. The author even writes a note at the end, and he says, I wrote this because I feel like a lot of men in Japan end up alone and dying by themselves due to the way that so many are forgotten. No one checks on a man to see if they're okay. No one checks on them to see what they need in their life, if they need emotional support. If they become homeless, they absolutely become like trash to anybody walking around them, and no one checks on them anymore. And this is kind of true. This is, I mean, of course, this happens to the opposite sex as well. This happens to women but this happens more so in Japan just because the man is still the traditional breadwinner for the family. He's still the salary man, and he still ends up working insane hours. And one of the biggest, I don't know, in my eyes, social problems is that because the dad works this hard and all the time and for so long, he grows detached from his own kids because he almost never gets to see them. When you're working this many hours, you don't get to go to sports meetups or parent-teacher meetings or any kind of new school orientation or anything like that. And on top of it, the wife almost expects him to go to work every day and be the big breadwinner, and he doesn't serve that purpose anymore. She just throws him out like yesterday's trash. And this has happened more and more in Japan. We're starting to find more and more people who've died alone, and it's mostly men. And it's sad, and it's kind of an epidemic that's been hitting Japan recently. So this comic kind of really speaks to that and really makes you think about we should really pay attention more to the people who do a lot of work but never get emotional attention, just like the guy in this manga. If that story sounded like a good one, I would say still go read it. There's still side stories and stuff like that attached to the main story that you can read in deeper within the manga, and they're good too. But this is definitely one of the most absolute tearjerkers of a manga I have ever read, and I was crying all the way through to the end. It was, whew. Yeah, I've never read anything sadder. Anyway, guys, what's the saddest manga you've ever read? I'd love to know. Let me know in the comments down below. Until next time, I've been Inksmith. Have a great day.